this is Ananya and today is the fourth day in the OOP series. Last time we finished with class variables and instance variables, and now it's time we get to know about instance methods, class methods, and also static methods. Now, instance methods are pretty simple. We all know them. I'm taking the last example we took, that is about the volume of a sphere, and you see this method inside the class. This is exactly an instance method. Now, coming to class methods, what if you want to modify the class variable constant? Okay, how do you think you're going to do that? Well, that's where class methods come into play. Using class methods, you can modify your class variables. That's one way to do it, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use decorators for this purpose. Now, in case you do not do decorators, you all need to go and have a quick look at that. All right. Now, assuming you all know about decorators, let's get started. So what I want to do is I want to change the value of constant. Here I'm calculating the volume of a sphere. Now I want to calculate the volume of, let's say, a cone. For that, my constant needs to change. So what I shall do is, firstly, let's define a function named as change constant. Okay, so let's say change constant, and then please just have a look at what I'm passing. I'm passing CLS and then a variable const. Okay, now in our normal instance methods, we used to pass self. Self basically overtakes the task of an object. Now, similarly, instead of self, we will be passing class. Now, we could not have typed a total class parameter. Why? Because that would actually become a different keyword, right? It would become the class volume. We cannot reuse those. And hence, we modified it to use CLS. Again, what CLS does is it basically goes to the class volume and modifies this. We'll be understanding that just in a while. Now that being done, CLS is pretty similar to self, but only it does a different task. Now what I'm going to do is I can access the constant variable using the CLS parameter. So CLS dot constant is equal to const. Now, const is basically the value that I'll be passing from outside the class. This basically looks exactly like a normal method now, right? So, the difference is when you add the decorator to it, that is add class method. And this basically goes and changes the normal method into a class method. For that, again, you'll need to know decorators. This being done, let's go ahead and actually create a method where we can calculate the volume of a cone. So we're going to say def cone, and to that I shall be passing our parameters. We know them, right? First one, most importantly, it's got to be self. Next, I'll be taking the radius and the height. Okay, and after that, I'll simply be returning the volume. And if you remember, we are always supposed to access the class variables using either the class name or the object name. So I'm just going to use the class name now, and I'll multiply that with r square and h. That's the formula, right? 1 by 3 pi r square h. Okay, that's done. Now the process is pretty simple. Now let's just go ahead and create an object cone to which you assign the class volume. So as you can see, I have printed the value of the volume of the cone with radius 3 and height 4. This being done, there's one thing that's left to do, and that is actually changing the constant value. We haven't yet done that. So I'm going to do that after the sphere. Let's say after the sphere object, since I don't want it changing for sphere also. So what I'm going to do is simply access it using the class name. So volume dot change constant. Now, why are we using class.method name? That's because it's a class method. It belongs to the class. And that's basically it. Now you can simply pass the value to it. So we have changed the value and we have created a new object and created a class method and also a method that calculates the volume of the cone. Now let's run this. Well, as you can see, we have two different constants and two different values of the volume of a sphere and next the volume of a cone. That's pretty nice, right? So whenever you want to change such class variables, you all can do that using the class method. Now we know instance methods, we know class methods, and now it's time to know about static methods. Now static methods might seem a little confusing, but as to how to use it, when are we supposed to use it, so I'm going to try and make that a little clear for you. Now static methods should be used whenever you want to use variables, or let's say you want to perform any action that is not directly related to the functions of your class. For example, you had an employee class. Let's say you want to add a method where you can say it's a morning shift or a night shift, or let's say it's a weekend or a weekday. All of that can be done within the static method. Why? Because it's not directly related to an employee, such as his or her name, pay, then ID or email or something like that. It's not directly related. It's sort of indirectly related. For example, if you had shift, you could maybe have some night shift where students are studying, right? A night school. So it can be related to various topics. Let's say employee or student. Shifts are allocated there also. Similarly, let's take weekend or weekday. It might relate to an employee or a student or anything, right? Teachers. So it varies. It's not exactly for only the employee class. That's where you have to use static methods, wherever there is some sort of logical connection to the class. Now, one important point, that like class methods and instance methods that take the self instance and the class parameter, static methods do not take anything as such. They have no self or class parameters. They just take the random arguments that you want to provide. So we'll use the similar method of using decorators. So let's say add static method. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is, since this is a volume class, I'm going to give something like the shape or the type of an object being either 2D or 3D. So if it is 2D, I wanted to print area. And if it's not 2D, let's say it's 3D, then I wanted to print volume. So that's what it'll find, right? This is all my static method does, nothing else. So you see, it is no way related to the class. It cannot access the class variables, cannot access the class methods, nothing. It's just all alone by itself, but it is still in a way related to the class. Now, what I'm simply going to do is, after cone, I'll say print volume. Why volume? It is contained inside the class, right? Not outside it. Hence, we can access it using the let's say volume or class name. So I'm going to say volume.view, and to that let's pass 2D. Let's see how this works out. And you see, you got your answer as area. Okay, as simple as that. So I hope you all have an idea of static method now too. Class method and instance methods are pretty simple, but static is sort of a little mind-boggling, but you'll get a hang of it. Alright, I'll see you all next time with something interesting. Bye-bye, I'll see you all soon.